are you doing? Great. Have you had a good weekend?
Yeah.
Are you ready for one more?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the con to come back next year?
Yeah.
Well, too bad. All right. Thank you all for coming this weekend. I hope you had a great time. We've got one more big thing, well, a couple more, but one more with our guests. And I just want to say that we really appreciate everybody who has been part of this convention over the years. It has been a big part of our lives, and I hope it's been a big part of your lives. And we have appreciated having the opportunity to present this show to all of you for 15 years now. And you know, it's like 14 by calendar. We started in 2005, so the 2006 will be the first year, but it's our 15th year of doing cons. So I hope y'all had a great time over the past 15 years. If you've only been one time or if you've been all 15, we hope that you found something enjoyable and special. So with that in mind, talking about special, let's bring up our amazing guests. We have Kelly Yates. We have Robert Allsopp. We have Louie Robinson. Jason Haigh-Ellery. We have the amazing and lovely Janet Fielding. We have the amazing and lovely Edward Russell. And the amazing and lovely John Davey. Now, those of you who have been around for this in the past, you know that this one is a very informal one. It can get silly. So if you're not a big fan of silly. So I'm just gonna walk around the microphone, and anybody who wants to ask questions of the amazing guests, it doesn't have to be about Doctor Who. It can be about shoes. It can be about their favorite ice cream. It can be about their pets. Anything, but make it fun and make it silly if you can. All right, so who's got a question that they would like to ask our guests? Yes, sir.
So you all are a part of a very, very special club. You guys are on the inside. All the rest of us around the world are on the outside. What's the best part about being part of the Doctor Who family?
I think a huge part of it is that we come to places like this, see people like you, and we get to share our stories and, you know, give you the entertainment. We find it fantastic. So yeah, that's the special part of it, because there's very few television programs that have the appeal and have the fan dedication. So yeah, we kind of have to thank you, really.
I'd say something is magical about Doctor Who. If you're good to Doctor Who, it will be good to you for the rest of your life. And I think Janet is someone who can demonstrate that. You know, you're still being flown around the world, looked after like the princess you are.
You'll pay for that later.
It's true.
That's families for you.
It's true, because this job, we were just doing a job, and we are now being treated so well by the people who love the job as well, and you know, that's the best thing ever.
Well, those of you who were at the panel yesterday that I did will know that, and today actually, that I talked about being what a privilege it is to be a treasured part of somebody's childhood and their upbringing, and that really does mean quite a lot. I was surprised at how much it meant, actually. You know, when people come up to you and tell you that you helped them get through a really tough time in their adolescence or their childhood, you know, and there they are in their, you know, as adults. There's something particularly moving about that, and from my point of view, when I needed the Doctor Who family when I was very ill, they rallied around me, so that was huge. You know, the modern Doctor Who family, Russell T, Stephen Moffat, Peter Capaldi, David Tennant, you know, they were wonderful to me, as well as Peter Davison, Colin Baker and Paul McGann and all the companions from the classic era as well. They were all great, you know. I was very lucky.
It's interesting about Doctor Who fandom. because a lot of us on this panel were fans first and then got involved with Doctor Who in one way or another. And I remember going in to see the BBC after the television programme had it been announced that Chris Eccleston was going to be the Doctor and the show was coming back, and they got me in as a licensee holder to have a chat, and they said, well, this is really secret and no one knows this, but the Daleks are coming back. And I said, yes or no? And Chris Eccleston's the Doctor, yes or no? And Billy Piper's going to be the companion, yes or no? And this is going to happen. I said, yes and no. And they said, hang on there, how do you know all this? And I said, well, being a Doctor Who fan is a bit like the Masons. We all sort of look after each other, we all sort of tell each other little secrets, and it's all kept within the family. So I would say, yes, absolutely, it's a family. But it's a bit like being in the Masons too.
Well, I've been coming here for more years than I can think. And I would say that you make me feel ashamed that I didn't pay more attention. Thank you for stepping on my gag. Terrible person. Yeah, that I didn't pay more attention to what I was doing when I was doing it. It's after 20 years, you rediscover that the little pebble you threw out comes back as a huge wave. And, you know, for that, thanks to Alan and thanks to all of you. And thanks for screwing up my joke. I nearly said fucking up.
As John said, it's great to be asked over to events such as this. That's a huge privilege, and from my point of view, as someone who makes a relatively small contribution to the Doctor Who family, it's really nice to get some kind of recognition in this way.
Aw, shucks. Well, I feel especially privileged to be here, and especially up here on the stage with people, because I'm this little boy from North Carolina, and they let me play in the little British sandbox over there, and it's been such a huge part of my life and my career. I mean, especially I grew up watching Doctor Who Classic, PBS and everything, but just all the things I've been involved in, and actually now that I'm with the circle, I hear those little secrets every once in a while now. It's pretty cool and exciting, so I'm just very thankful for all of it.
Hi folks, thanks for coming to the convention. We really enjoyed having you this year, especially folks like Robert and Louie and Kelly who have come so many times. But by the way, I just want to say that Janet, your hair looks fabulous.
Thank you.
And I want that orange silk shirt.
Really? The one I had on yesterday?
Yes, that was
Okay.
great. That was great.
Stand in line.
No. Oh, I know.
Moxie's got her eye on it. And I told her it won't fit.
What I would like to know from each of you is, what is your favorite memory associated with Doctor Who? Whether it's just something about the show in general, or a particular episode or a moment that you had in fandom.
It's difficult, for all of us. There have been so many memories, but probably one of my favourite memories was after we were filming an episode of The Return of Dr. Mysterio. And we were shooting all day, and I was just leaving, and I was passing Peter Capaldi in the corridor, and he said to me, and I won't do a Scottish accent because it would be terrible, he said, he goes, "Hi John, how's it going?" He said, I heard you were at a Doctor Who convention at the weekend, what was it like? Which was the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. Doctor Who is saying, I heard you were at a Doctor Who convention. And I said, yeah, and I was a bit flabbergasted. I was like, oh yeah, it's really, really fun, and you know, Colin and Pete and Terry and everyone was there. And I just could not figure out how he knew. And it was a convention in Swansea called Regenerations, great convention. And Lauren, one of the girls who was the runner on Doctor Who, was actually at the convention as well. And then she had told Peter in the morning. So she then told me later on that evening. But yeah, it did sort of flabbergast me. But yeah, that was just one of the memories that, you know, Peter, David and Matt were all amazing, but that was the one that kind of stuck out for me.
Thanks.
I've got lots of brilliant memories as well, but I think the one that I love the most is 23rd November 2013. when we showed the Day of the Doctor 50th anniversary special, well, simultaneously in 96 countries and cinema, but specifically I was sat at the BFI in London, where we were screening it to 450 people. We had Matt Smith in the audience, and Stephen Moffat and a few other people in the audience. And I had seen it already, and I knew what was coming. And I was waiting for that one special moment. And it's the bit you all know towards the end, where Matt Smith is in the museum, and he's talking to himself. And I was just listening, because I knew it was going to happen. And then, obviously, Tom Baker says that line, I think you might. And just grown men were crying around me. So it's been great to have those little insights and foreknowledge of things, and then experience you guys having it in real time is wonderful. So that's my favourite moment, I think.
Well, obviously, because I did 3 years on the show, there are lots of great memories. But these days, one of my favourite things is fighting Peter Davison to get to the lunch before him at the Big Finish Studios. And there is a fight every time. And we also, we take the mickey out of each other relentlessly. And Sarah sits between us, so that the booth, because we're all in separate booths doing the play. And so there's Peter, and then Sarah, and then me. And Peter and I are sort of slagging each other off, and Sarah's in the middle trying to, to adjudicate. And
Just like on the show.
I love doing that. I love being mean to Peter. What can I say?
One of these days we're going to release the outtakes.
Bestseller.
I'm going to be naughty and say two things actually. One of which was when David Tennant became the Doctor on screen. That was a very surreal moment for me because only 6 months previously I'd been directing David in Lou for Arkwright, and we'd gone down the pub and we talked about, it's interesting, you go down the pub with, when we first met David, I met David at a party which Toby Longworth, who's an RSC actor, was having, and he said, my mate's a huge Doctor Who fan, you should get him in, he's a great actor, and I was like, oh, okay, great. And I met David, wonderful guy, and first, at the end of chatting to him, he was suddenly got a bit paranoid, I think, and he said, look, I can lose the scotch. And so he was so into his Doctor Who, and when we cast him in Dalek Empire, he was just like, oh, fantastic, I'm getting a decent part of Doctor Who. And he did the series with that, and the last time I saw him prior to him being Doctor Who, all we did was sit in the pub talking about Doctor Who. And then, so when he was on, I knew it was him, because we all did, but when he regenerated and he was there, he said, Barcelona. And I just punched the air and went, yes, involuntarily. Because I thought, isn't that wonderful that he got Doctor Who? The second moment was actually getting Paul McGann into the studio in Bristol to come and do the first series he did with us at Big Finish. And Paul turned up, he was the present Doctor. We were very early in what we were doing. We were only a year launched.
And I was his agent.
And yes, and very kindly allowed us to use Paul. And he was so lovely. We were really worried that he might be this big star who was going to be, difficult or whatever. But he was so lovely, and he just wanted to do the job. It became so obvious that it was a disappointment to him that he never got the chance to be the Doctor on television in America and do those 7 years, that he had so many things he wanted to do with the part and never got a chance to do. So, because he sat there and talked to us about it over lunch every day, saying, and what me and Phil Seeger were talking about was this, and this, and this, and this, and it became very obvious that he really thought through what he was going to do with the part, which is why, if you listen to the first season and the second and third, they are quite different, because we basically wrote for what Paul wanted. Anyway, so those are my two big moments in Doctor Who.
Actually, sorry, David Tennant, I met David when I was an agent for the first time, and I had a client called Liam Cunningham who was playing Orlando in As You Like at the RSC. And David Tennant was playing Jack Reeves, and I went up for the opening night. And Liam said, "You've got to come and meet David. He's got your picture on his wall." It's up in my dressing room, you know, because they shared a dressing room, and it was up on David's wall.
Well, actually, apologies, I feel like I'm hogging now, but there's a little story I'll tell you about Peter Capaldi, which is I employed Peter in Lady Killers. I was one of the producers on Lady Killers in the West End, and he was playing the professor. And for just after opening night, I took David Tennant in to go and see the show, and we'd arranged to go round the back to see Peter afterwards. And I knew Peter was a bit, I thought, you know, everyone said that Peter was a bit of a Doctor Who fan. And I'd actually brought him as a present for opening night the first Tom Baker CD we just had out. And then I absolutely panicked. When I got there, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, what if he's just a bit of a fan of Doctor Who, and he's going to look at this and think, what the hell is this? And I walked into his room, and on opening night, everyone had sent him Daleks, Cybermen, TARDISes, all around his dressing room. Underneath the mirror and everywhere else were all Daleks, TARDISes, Cybermen. I thought, oh, this is fine, and gave him Sorry.
There's so many. I'll tell you something that I haven't told anybody, not even the people who have interviewed me. I did, as you all know, The Demons. Got to know John Pertwee pretty well. And then time passes. And like in showbiz, you kind of say you're going to be friends forever. You aren't. I have a family, and I have a daughter. My daughter grows up. She's dyslexic. She listens to tapes. She becomes the world's leading expert on the Navy Lark, in which John Pertwee stars. The thing about that is that she ended up doing a BBC Radio 4 documentary about the Navy Lark.
All right.
And one day she came with me to Telly-Alex, where we were having a celebrity final, and there was John Pertwee. So I say to him, "Great to see you." He said, "Oh, I'd love to see you again. This is my daughter. She's a big fan of yours." He says, "Oh, do you like Doctor Who?" She says, "No, I like the Navy Lark." He goes, spare. He loves her from that moment on. She and he start to write to each other all the time. She's now maybe 14. She's at school in Bryanston, down in Dorset. And she and I aren't getting along very well. But she's getting along well with John Pertwee. She starts to make contact with me again, because I haven't been getting on very well with her. I'm going to get through this. John Pertwee writes to her and says, "By the way, I'm coming to do my evening with John Pertwee in Bryanston. So it'll be nice to pull my little, to have your little rowboat pull up beside HMS Troutbridge," which was the name of the boat. She and I, by this time, are like that. And he died. And he never made the show. And I just thought, you know what? All these little things fit together. And I can say thanks to Doctor Who and Navy Lark for that. Because my daughter and I, she's now left the BBC and now we're working with Amazon. But that was the beginning of us reconnecting.
I can't really follow that. But only to say that whenever I'm up in Cardiff on set for Doctor Who, it's just a really magical and privileged thing, and any of those times are my favourite moments, really.
Well, I'm actually very thankful for comic books, and my, hopefully this is not the highlight, hopefully there's many more, but because of comic books, Doctor Who comic books in particular, I was able to do my first UK convention about 2 years ago, and the show I went to was called Talk Bubble up in Leeds. So I went up there and I was talking with people, and this guy comes by and starts talking to me for a little bit and everything, and we end up having a friend in common, and come to find out, you know, he's like, "What are you doing the rest of your vacation?" I was like, "Well, my wife and I, we're going to go back into London for a couple of days, rent a car, drive over to Cardiff, do the Doctor Who experience and everything." He goes, "Oh, well, would you like to go tour the set of the TARDIS? I'm like, well, yeah, absolutely. So, they had to put calls in and all that, and I was invited to go run around the set of the TARDIS. My wife and I went over there for 2 hours and probably took a couple thousand pictures, and it was pretty. I mean, just imagine telling little Kelly Yates watching PBS in the late 70s, 80s that I'd be able to run around the set and just kind of. It was just very magical. You know, that still just holds a place in my heart. So. Okay, who has other questions? See what it is. And I know what the question is going to be. Oh, it's not?
It's not.
Oh.
Change it. Well, there is one question I always ask every convention. Not counting Doctor Who or Whistle, the theme tune of the program that scared you when you were a kid.
I did.
Usually.
I don't know the theme tune, but if anyone can sing the theme tune to Sapphire and Steel, that
Yeah, do you know
that
what?
did
I
scare
was
me.
as well. I was scared by Sapphire and Steel when I was a kid.
Me was Tomorrow People.
Were you scared by the flares?
Yes, flared hairstyles.
I had the privilege of, you know that Tomorrow People was Pete Davidson's first job. Have you ever seen it, Jack?
Yes.
Isn't it brilliant?
Absolutely. Yes.
Have you heard the commentary?
Love the costume. I really don't understand why he hasn't worn it to.
It kind of looks like Moxie, doesn't he?
He looks like Moxie. He does look like Moxie.
Did you hear the commentary that he did?
No.
It's hilarious.
Right.
Because we got him into, I phoned Peter up because we were doing the commentaries for all the DVD releases. And I said, Peter, we're just about to do your acting performance in the Tomorrow People.
It was with Sandra, wasn't it?
It was with Sandra, and he laughed his head off. He said, you want me to come in for a commentary? And I went, yes. And he was like, okay, I'm game. And he basically died of shame the whole way through. It's worth listening to because it is actually on YouTube, normally enough.
Right.
It's just put in Peter Davison Tomorrow People commentary and it will come up. And honestly, it's the best half hour of your life. And Janet would love it because it's just Peter just being absolutely basically apologising and being mortified the whole way through.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm definitely going to. I'm going to check that out. Especially if I can in any way humiliate him or victimise him.
You can bring it in on your iPad, start playing. So you said, Peter, what were you thinking when you did this?
But you haven't answered the question.
I said something to start when you were doing the thing to you know. What scared you as a kid?
As a kid, I wasn't scared of anything as a kid. Yes, I was. It's actually a show called The Big Pull, which was on 6 episodes on BBC One, pre-Doctor Who. And it scared the living daylights out of me. It was a sci-fi film, but I don't remember the theme tune. I do know that the first thing I actually dreamed of at night and woke up in sweat was I worked on a show called, as a film editor, called Midweek, which was like, it came after a show called 24 Hours, it's now called Newsnight. But I always remember that tune, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to go in to do this work. It was a horrific show to do. And I just remember, first time I woke up at night sweating, hearing the signature tune in my head. Still today.
I don't think I can think of one. That was it.
I guess one that kind of scared me is Marshall, Will, and Holly. Land of the Lost.
Oh,
yeah. I think I was just young enough not to realize that the dinosaurs were a little kooky, but they were still scary, you know. Next question. Who's got it? Oh, I see.
Okay, he said to make it silly, what is your favorite vegetable? And tomato is not a vegetable.
Your favorite vegetable?
You might have to define favourite and what's the purpose of it?
It'll determine which vegetable gets is thrown at you later.
Are we allowed to include people in that?
My favourite vegetable is, I would say, I do like a good bunch of broccoli. Yes.
Let's hear it for broccoli.
I'm going to go with the very versatile potato. You can do so much with it. Eggs, chips, whatever, fries. Definitely potato. It's not a fruit.
Although I know a few of those. I like really fresh garden peas.
I like a good carrot. Diced.
I used to love vegetables till I came to live in the south. Explain that. My wife keeps taking me to real southern restaurants where the vegetables come from 1959.
I'm going to go for crinoid, finely chopped.
I can't explain it, but Brussels sprouts. I don't know.
Hardest thing you've ever done for Doctor Who, or in the name of Doctor Who.
Easy. Easy one. Okay, so years ago, I was at a convention in Chicago, and it was not long after the Mara stories had come out, and people kept asking me to do the Mara laugh. And I finally had enough of this. I thought, I need one more person. So I did. If one more person asked me to do the Mara laugh, I'm going to hit them over the head. So, inevitably, one more person came up to the mic and asked me to do the Mara laugh. And there was a guy sitting in the front seat who had a rolled up tube, you know, with one of those poster tubes. So I said, could I borrow that, please? And I got this guy who'd asked the question to come up, and I hit him like that. And don't ask me to do the Mara laugh again, I said. And off he went. Okay. Then, wherever I went, and that was 1987, so I had a lot of Doctor Who conventions to do that year, because PBS had a bus going around America with, you know, a panopticon with monsters on it and what have you. We were fundraising for PBS. Everywhere I went, people made me Mara sticks. And people would line up to be eaten. And I said, this is the most powerful nation on earth. And its citizens are lining up to be hit over the head. Bit weird. Let's be honest, that is a bit weird.
I'm not sure we can follow that.
I've got a very odd one. It's something that seemed like a really good idea at the time. In 2013, 50th anniversary, we got to take Doctor Who to Buckingham Palace, where the royal family live in the UK. And we took Tom Baker there and Matt Smith and similar people along to Buckingham Palace. We did a few recce's beforehand just to work with people at Buckingham Palace. And I had to go to the bathroom at one point, and I had it in my head that I wanted to take a piece of toilet paper from Buckingham Palace. And I did that. And I kept it, and I put it into, I know.
Used or unused?
It was unused. You know, this is the same toilet paper as the Queen uses, so... and I put it into a book, and I completely forgot about it for ages, and I was looking through the book a few years later, and there was a piece of toilet paper, and I thought, why on earth did I do that? It was a good story, I guess.
There's been a lot of weird things that I've done, but one thing that stood out was when we were in Australia doing the Symphonic Spectacular, we were in Melbourne, and little did us Brits know that it's actually quite difficult to buy alcohol after 10 o'clock at night in Australia. So a lot of the pubs would stop serving. So we just done rehearsals. We went to this really nice little bar outside of the Melbourne Convention Centre. It was 10:15, and they also served pints, because a lot of places in Australia serve schooners, which are 3/4 of a pint, and that's just not good enough. So, great, I'm gonna get my pint in. So I went up to the bar and I said, can I have a pint of Little Preachers, please? And they said, oh no, we close in 15 minutes, so we don't serve pints because you know you'll still be drinking at 10. I said, well, we're British, you know, that isn't going to last 5 minutes. No, those are the rules. You can have a schooner. I said, oh, schooners are okay then. Yeah, okay. Can I have 10 schooners? And they gave me 10 schooners. I didn't drink all 10. I did give some out to the rest of the cast. Fun times.
Nothing crazy, but I was doing a convention in Huntsville, and they were getting ready to introduce us, and Paul McGann was there, and Eric Roberts, and I had not met Eric Roberts yet. Walks through the door, walks up to me, and starts karate chopping me like this, and then walks away.
Siler is responsible for this one.
Oh, no. God knows what it is.
Well, you'll know who the actor was, won't you? He was from Timegate.
Stargate.
Oh, yes, I do.
He came along, famous Hollywood star with his lovely Hollywood actress wife. And because of him making me accompany on my guitar, John Levine, I ended up, of which he then got out of it, and I was stuck to do the whole act. I've been playing here at the Cabaret every year. And you know, one wants to be as sophisticated and as charming as possible. I mean, James Taylor, So along comes this guy, and Alan hasn't told him that he's going to get up and do a spot during the cabaret.
Oh, yes, I did tell him.
Did he?
Oh, yes, I did.
He lied. So he gets up on stage with his girlfriend and says, come up and play your guitar. First I'd heard of it. I get up there, and he's trying to think of a song. And remember me, the sophisticated singer-songwriter from England? And he says to me, do you know I'm a little teapot? And I stood on this stage with this Hollywood actor and his girlfriend going, I'm a little teapot. Now the trick is, I don't know the words, because sophisticated singer-songwriters don't know the song. And there's Ashley Harp, who is a regular here, except she's just been to England, was sitting in the audience, mouthing. And all I could think of was, Alan, please do not have this on video. It was humiliating. I mean, really, you can laugh at it, but I still, like the music from midweek, I still wake up and think, shit, I'm a little
Yeah, hard to follow that once again.
You just need to start off next time so you're not following anybody.
Yeah, next year, Alan.
Okay.
I guess one of my strangest was being on a kind of carnival float going around London dressed as a Sontaran, which was on the occasion of Peter Davison's first ever appearance as the Doctor, which was part of the Lord Mayor's procession, I think, that year. And the Doctor Who Appreciation Society got involved, and we built various monsters. And I believe I'm right saying that was Peter's first ever public appearance in costume.
You've just, a little thing as a side, you've reminded me that many years ago I actually performed on stage with Mark Strickson and someone else who I'm trying to remember as the Bee Gees. and we'd got the wigs. And I took it not very seriously, and I thought this would be a bit of a laugh, and it's fine. Mark took it deadly seriously and insisted on us actually rehearsing beforehand. And when it all slightly fell apart, when we were on stage, he came off and blamed us for it. And I was like, yeah, sorry Mark, I'm really sorry. And yes, that's all it is.
We are so lucky. You folks represent decades and decades of experience in arts and entertainment, different capacities, different media. I'm curious to know, your thoughts on the most exciting, the most tragic, maybe, the most fun developments in arts and entertainment during your careers, or things that you're anticipating, things which are about to happen, things that you might like to happen in arts and entertainment.
Well, I'm going to go because I'm actually developing something now. I'm working for a company who are working with Aardman Animations, famous for Wallace and Gromit, and we're trying to find a new way of telling stories. And we've been given a government grant to do that, and we're looking to see if augmented reality is a way of telling stories, and we're going to be making an augmented reality Wallace and Gromit story. If you don't know what AR is, it's a bit like Pokemon Go. You look through your phone and you see things into the real world. But Pokemon Go is just a game, it's an experience, and we want to try and find new ways. So, because we've had TV, we've had film, we've had radio, we want to find out what the next thing is. So that's very, very exciting. I don't know if it'll be the next thing, but we're gonna try. So look out for that in about a year's time when we launch it.
What he said.
Yeah, what he said.
Janet's not agreeing with me all weekend. That's the first time she's agreed with me.
Yeah, it was bound to happen sooner or later.
I think the advent of long-form storytelling in television really has changed the entertainment industry. But you know, trying to tell a story as a movie, and I love movies, but having 2.5 hours to actually portray characters in a story now compared to all the amazing long-form shows that are all on TV really gives. Well, especially it really gives writers and actors room to develop, and also being able to actually ingest the whole story in one go and not having to wait every single week.
Well, interestingly, Netflix are now doing much shorter shows, aren't they? So there's a show called Special, which is only 15 minutes long, and Russian Doll is only 30 minutes. We've had the long form, and now we're going for those really small shows because we're so busy putting it all in.
I'm very old. And in England we had a magazine called Exchange and Mart. And what I used to love wanting to do was to see colour TV. Well, we only had black and white TV when I was a kid, and it was this big, the screens. So I once bought for 10 shillings from Exchange and Mart magazine a screen that you put on the front of the television set, which had blue across the top, then yellow, and then brown. And on long shots, it looked like it was colour. So, honest to God, even now when I turn the television on, I go, it's in colour.
Me too, Lou.
I think from a negative point of view for the entertainment industry, I suspect the advent of iTunes probably did so much damage to the record industry that it may not ever be what it was before.
The evil empire.
Yeah, it's the fact that
I don't think you can blame iTunes, though. It's the advent of the MP3 as opposed to iTunes themselves.
No, it's the model. It's the financial model.
It's the financial model.
But
it's the fact they take 70% of the money.
But the option is that people were just doing it for free before iTunes came along. They were just Napster and all these sharing services.
No, the difference is that all the record labels thought that the money from iTunes was incremental income and did deals appropriate to that, rather than realising it was going to take over and be the only form of income. And you're in a state where, you're in a situation where to get the front page of iTunes now, you basically agree that you will let them sell it for £1 and that you would get 30% of that. So you produce an album, you get 30p. And they sell millions. It is a problem. It is effectively a monopoly. Because, okay, how many people here use a download service other than iTunes? Okay, that's pretty good then. Okay, I'll take that back slightly.
Spotify, but that's obviously not much better. But,
yeah, but
same model.
Same model, but all the others have followed track in terms of putting the emphasis on they taking the lion's share of the money. And realistically, if they'd had the sense back then, they would have done a deal where iTunes got 20% or 30%. not the other way around. And that has been detrimental. I know a lot of people in bands, and you know, it makes development of new bands and investment in new bands very, very difficult, because the record companies know they have to shift a hell of a lot to ever recoup the money. So yeah, it's that was a bit negative. Having said that, of course, it means that all your work is accessible all around the world at any time. So that's the positive side.
It's also disposable. It's very fast.
Yeah, it's ephemeral.
Yeah.
People forget about it and they don't. Yeah, and I mean, we're the Big Finish. When I talk to people in the record industry about stuff, and I had a small label for a bit when I was doing the reality show I did with Nadia Ford, and we had a small record label with her, and so I learned a lot, and my eyes were very much opened during that period of time. When I say to them that we still sell 40% of our product as CDs, they're all in shock. And the difference is Doctor Who fans like to collect something. And that's why we still sell
I still buy CDs.
Yeah.
I still buy CDs because I want the stuff, the physical,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, I know that vinyl's sort of made this huge comeback, and part of that too is the thing that used to be fabulous about music was a lot of the art that went with, you know, the album covers and all of that kind of stuff, and it was, you know, it was a whole package that was really exciting.
The problem about it being ephemeral, as you said, is I'll download a new album on iTunes and I'll listen to it once, and if it hasn't grabbed me, I won't listen to it again. If I'd spent £10, £20 on a CD, I would listen to it a few times to get my money's worth and then fall in love with it. And so I'm missing out on loving all this music.
But also you'd spot it because it'd be on your shelf and you
It
go,
would,
oh,
yeah.
look at that, but you're not looking for it, are you?
Sergeant.
Absolutely.
I guess with my side of the industry, it's how much computer-generated effects can work, partly replacing what I do, but also working together with what I do, and that can actually be really positive and interesting. I worked on a TV show a couple of years ago called Fungus the Bogeyman, and
Not Fungus the Bogeyman.
thanks. And it was quite interesting. We were building costumes for all these characters, big built-up paddings, and then we were just putting LED tracking markers around the necks, and all the heads of the main characters were created afterwards. And we did build heads for background characters, but the whole process of working with the CG guys was actually really interesting and actually quite a positive experience. So that's from my point of view, something that can be a positive and a negative, really.
I think just having access to more stuff is pretty
There's always one.
Great innovation.
Is that the iTunes lawyers? I know our phones are listening to us.
That's why I've got BlackBerry. Is it Nick? Is it Tim Cook?
No, it's my girlfriend.
One last question. So let's see if we can make it a quick question and maybe a really short answer, because I've got one thing I need to do before we finish up.
Right. From as little as laughable to mild as eye roll to as furious as blood boil, British stereotypes of what you've experienced in person, seen or heard in any media format, your experiences. Like what British stereotypes, like for example, how America perceives British people and what y'all had to deal with, or oh, you laugh at this, you're furious at that.
Well, there's probably just two words, Jason Statham. I'm not too sure what exactly is going on with his accent, but it's neither here or there. Nah.
I use it to my advantage. As soon as I open my mouth and speak to people here, they'll just do anything for me. So.
Really?
Yes, I use it to my advantage.
Well, I'm not British. Well, I am. I mean, I now have a British passport as well, but I'm Australian. So, and I use...
Hang on a minute, someone went, ah!
And I have to say, I cultivate my Australian accent, especially in England, because it allows me to get away with murder. People expect me to be badly behaved.
You're not disappointed.
Slightly off it, but I'm always love watching audience reactions to Hugh Laurie when he goes on talk shows, because they have no idea he's English, because his American is so good. So when he goes up there and starts chatting, and you can just hear the audience go, "What the hell?" So, there you go.
That's the same thing with our last two Spider-Men too.
Yes.
I love how traditionally the evil genius or the bad person was always someone with a British accent.
Well, that's true.
The accent of evil.
They think I'm honest. I can tell you this, I swear this is true. I have used becoming British, as my wife says, be British. I've used that so many times with cops. You mean that big sign that says stop? Means, oh, I had no idea. I mean, four-way stops? I got away with it. So I'm British.
Yeah, what he said.
You just reminded me, I was years ago when I first went to LA, I was with a friend in the car and I was driving, and it's the first time I'd driven on the wrong side of the road. And there was, it came up towards the traffic lights. I didn't realise you had one above. But there was normally in the UK, it's one on the left, one on the right. And because I'm usually driving on the left-hand side, I automatically looked to the left. And the left had gone red, but that meant for turning left. And the one above me, where I was going, was green, which meant I should have gone on. But I saw the one red on the left-hand side, so I stopped. And the guy behind me went screech, so he was going on. And he went round the side, and he went, "What are you doing, you," etc., etc., etc. And my friend, who was American, was wound down the window and went, "He's British!" And he went, "Oh, God." You know, so that was
Okay, thank you all so much. That wraps up our hour. And thank you all so much for being here. We've got a quick little, not really quick, little video that we're going to show at 5 o'clock, which kind of chronicles the history of our convention. And then closing ceremony is 6 o'clock. But for right now, please give a big round of applause for John Davey, Edward Russell, Janet Hillman, Jason Haigh-Ellery, Louis Robertson,